open up the Declaration of Independence to the general public, I'd like to share a few words with all of you. As we just learned from Justice O'Connor, the document that we see here today is known as a Dunlop broadside. Let's take a step back into our own history to a month before this document was printed. It was June 7, 1776, and Congress was meeting in Philadelphia. The people of the colonies were fed up with abuses from King George and his refusal to even discuss their grievances. There was discussion about declaring independence from England. A committee was appointed to draft a declaration. This group of 5 men asked 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson, whom they deemed to be the best writer of the group, to write a document. After several days, he shared his writings with the committee, and they made a few, again, a very few, but they did make some changes to his words. This rough draft still exists today in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The draft was taken to Congress where it was debated. To declare independence was not a light decision. Every person in the room put his life on the line with his vote to approve this declaration. On the morning of July 4th, 1776, a morning that we were told was bright and sunny but a little bit cool, the Continental Congress voted to adopt the Declaration of Independence. The same committee that wrote the document was charged with overseeing the printing. These were days long before email and faxes, and there were tremendous time constraints on sending any communications out. They had to get the word out to all the colonies in short order. The best they could do 200 years ago was to rely on fast horses and good riders. John Adams wrote, "We were all in haste." The only names that appear on the broadside are the printed names of John Hancock, the president of the Continental Congress, and Charles Thompson, secretary. John Dunlop was a 29-year-old Irish immigrant, and he apparently spent much of the night of July 4th setting the type and running off the broadside sheets, including the one that we see before us today. An estimated 200 copies were distributed throughout the 13 colonies. This is only one of 26 copies known to exist today. I can just picture elderly Benjamin Franklin, the master printer of his day, overseeing the process, and Thomas Jefferson pacing in the background. It must have been a very long night. Over the next few days, these broadsides, some with the ink barely dry, were carried briskly on horseback to all the colonies. One broadside was sent to King George, but it has been reported that he refused to open it. Another broadside was sent to George Washington, where he read it before the American Army in New York on July 9th. It was not until August 2nd that delegates began to sign the final official Declaration of Independence. As they put their pens to this document, I can only believe that these men knew that it was much more than a simple act of revolt. The Declaration of Independence is far more than a list of grievances drawn up 234 years ago. It is the most important document ever produced by an American. It gives us a way to understand what Americans were thinking more than 2 centuries ago. And it conveys better than anything else that was written before or has been written since the turbulent and troubling times that led to the birth of our nation. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence as a way to formally and forcefully declare independence from Great Britain. But it has become today, as we know, far more than that. It has become a document that all Americans consider a written guarantee of our basic rights. And it has become a powerful symbol of hope to people in other nations around the world who only dream of the freedoms that we have fought for and won in the United States of America. The copy of the Declaration of Independence that you see here today has been lost for decades before it was discovered in 1989 behind a flea market painting. Yet the words in the document have never been lost and have never been in danger of fading. They are as crystal clear today as they were on that first Saturday in July of 1776. Thomas Jefferson could never have guessed that the words in the Declaration of Independence would become as quoted, meaningful, beloved, and sustaining as they are today. Of course, the United States is a far different nation than it was in 1776, but the Declaration of Independence endures, whether it is read on parchment or on computer monitor. Why does the Declaration of Independence remain important? Because without it, there would likely not be the America that we know today. The individuals who signed this timeless document fought and died for our liberty, a fight that continues now. That alone makes the Declaration of Independence important to us. As Jefferson wrote, they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In this way, Jefferson established the purpose of the American government, a purpose that has remained unchanged. The Declaration goes on to state that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Today, as then, people have the right to decide whether their government is fair. Our founding fathers were determined to ensure that every American has a voice in how our government is run. So every time we vote in every election, we exercise the right to alter the government in a way that we see fit. We uphold the ideals of the Declaration of Independence by allowing our citizens to run our government, determine the rights and the wrongs of government, and to freely express our opinions. Now, while this broadside that you see in front of you does not contain the signatures of those who signed the Declaration of Independence, it is important that we remember the sacrifices that they made to establish our great nation. When they put their names on this sacred document, they knew that they were putting their lives on the line. 5 of the 56 signatories were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 of them had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary War, and another 2 had their sons captured. 9 died from wounds and hardships from the Revolutionary War. The men who put their names on this document were not wild-eyed rebels looking for trouble. They were mostly quiet, well-educated men of means. They were secure, but they did not have enough. They wanted liberty, and today we are fortunate beneficiaries of that courage and their wisdom. John Adams, the second president of the United States, knew that the Declaration of Independence would be important forever. He said the document, quote, ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illumination from one end of this continent to another, from this time forward, forever, and more. And doesn't that pretty much sound like the 4th of July that we celebrate every year? Nearly a century after signing the Declaration of Independence, our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, reflected on the importance of this document. And he said, I have never had a feeling politically that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence. And after a century after Lincoln, President Dwight Eisenhower expressed his love for the Declaration of Independence, and I quote, that declaration was more than a call to national action. It is a voice of conscience, establishing clear, enduring values applicable to the lives of all men. It stands enshrined today as a character of human dignity and liberty. Until these things belong to every living person, their pursuit is an unfinished business to occupy our children and generations to follow them. In 1785, less than a decade after he wrote the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson already was worried the document was losing its meaning. My God, he said to James Monroe, how little do your countrymen know what precious blessings they are in possession of and which no other people on the earth enjoy. I am confident, especially after today, that each one of us will better understand the blessings bestowed upon us from the Declaration of Independence. That understanding will only be reinforced as we take time today to again look at this incredible document and reflect on the history of the United States of America.